Get on the train before it leaves the station. The truth train is coming, gonna run them down, run them down.
Hello everybody, how you doing today? We're here today to take a little look at the kind of situation over in the UK right now with the whole pending Brexit thing, and then with that also the new crop up of the potential Scottish independence. You know, that conversation is now coming back up and reoccurring. And so I'm going to go into that a little bit today. So I was asked by a friend of mine, Miss Sharon, to just offer some of my thoughts about it. And so that's what I'm going to do today. I'm going to do that with the help of two other YouTubers. Sorry, Batchy. Sharon did show me your message, but I am using footage that is already public and uploaded by you on your YouTube channel. So it's already public. You've already said it, so it's not like I was twisting your arm to get it out of you. So we're going to be showing what a couple of other Scottish YouTubers have to say about kind of the state of things between Scotland and England, kind of in their own words. And I would point out that consistently I see the Scots are expressing that they have no real hatred for England, the people of England. They continuously, over and over, I hear this expressed. It's no issue between the people and that sort of stuff. That in the end, when it comes down to it, most of the issues that Scots have are with Westminster. And I think today I'm going to show why that is. I'm going to show you some of the things that go on and that could point to why a situation like, you know, we're currently seeing between Scotland and, you know, and the UK, where Scotland is actually once again considering becoming independent. So why is that happening, and what could be the cause, and you know, what could be fueling that? And that's what I'm going to try to go into a little bit today. But what I'm going to first start out with, before I get to the YouTubers, before I get to the, you know, Parliament footage and that sort of stuff, is I want to show what David Cameron said back in 2014 when Scotland was considering becoming independent back then, and there was going to be a vote. And so this is what he had to say back then. And I will say that Scottish independence is a thorny issue, and there's a lot of question marks in my mind that I would certainly want to see answered before anybody goes jumping off of any cliff. Now, I just said that about Scotland. I would also say that the same thing applies to the UK in its Brexit. I caution Scotland rushing too quickly toward independence without knowing some more of the answers to some of the question marks. The same way I caution the UK of rushing headlong into Brexit without allowing everybody the representation that's necessary for that to be constitutional, democratic, lawful, whatever word you want to insert, right? And I think with that in mind, the fact is that democracy is meant to be representative of all the people that live in that democracy. And what you're going to see today is some perversion of that. And that could be, and I'm just going to suggest that could be a big reason why the issue of Scottish independence has begun to get talked about again. Now, like I said, lots of question marks on both sides of this, on the Brexit and on the Scottish independence. And I think a lot of people need to sit down, because the whole thing is Brexit is pushing for fast change as well. They want to push this through now. They want to exclude people from the negotiations as to what that Brexit is going to look like and all that sort of thing. So when they exclude people, that's undemocratic. That rubs people the wrong way. It's, a snowball rolling downhill at that point. And what happens when a snowball rolls downhill is it picks up more and more as it gets, and by the time it gets to the bottom of the hill, it's a mountain. So fast change that is difficult because people don't like to be made to change quickly. It's just human nature. But if everybody were to take a little bit more practical look at it and realize that it doesn't need to just happen quickly. It's not important that it just happens quickly. It's important that everybody feels good about it, because there is issues with it. I mean, look, if they leave the Union, that means now when they travel abroad in Europe, those are international borders. I mean, there's a whole lot of things that come into this, a whole lot of things that need to be considered. As I said, with Scotland's independence, a whole bunch of question marks. So it's like I said, in my opinion, a lot more question marks need to be ironed out and cease to be question marks before any of this stuff can be rushed through, is my honest opinion. So having said that, I think I will, in the course of this video, point at what is causing the conversation about Scottish independence to rise again. So just my thoughts anyway on it. So here we go. I'm going to show you right now. This is David Cameron and his thoughts originally when Scotland was considering becoming independent the first time back in 2014. So here we go.
Rerun. This is a once and for all decision. If Scotland votes yes, the UK will split and we will go our separate ways forever. I believe I speak for millions of people across England, Wales and Northern Ireland, and many in Scotland too, who would be utterly heartbroken by the breakup of our United Kingdom. Utterly heartbroken to wake up on Friday morning to the end of the country we love. To know that Scots would no longer join with the English, Welsh and Northern Irish in our Army, Navy and Air Force, or in our UK-wide celebrations and commemorations, or in our UK sporting teams from the Olympics to the British Lions. We built this home together. It's only become Great Britain because of the greatness of Scotland, because of the thinkers, the writers, the artists, the leaders, the soldiers and inventors who have made this country what it is. It's Alexander Fleming and David Hume, J.K. Rowling and Andy Murray, and all the millions of people who've played their part in this extraordinary success story. Independence would not be a trial separation, it would be a painful divorce. And as Prime Minister, I have to tell you what that would mean. It would mean we no longer share the same currency. It would mean the armed forces we built up together over centuries being split up forever. It would mean our pension funds being sliced up at some cost. It would mean the borders we have would become international and may no longer be so easily crossed. It would mean the automatic support that you currently get from British embassies when you're travelling around the world, that would come to an end. It would mean over half of Scottish mortgages suddenly, from one day to the next, being provided by banks in a foreign country. It would mean that interest rates in Scotland are no longer set by the Bank of England with all the stability and security that promises. And it would mean for any banks that remain in Scotland, if they ever got into trouble, it would be Scottish taxpayers and Scottish taxpayers alone that would bear the costs. It would mean that we no longer pool resources across the whole of our United Kingdom to pay for institutions like our National Health Service or our welfare system. But you can get real, concrete change on Thursday if you vote no. Business as usual is not on the ballot paper. The status quo is gone. The campaign has swept it away. There's no going back to the way things were. A vote for no means real change. And we've spelt out that change in practical terms with a plan and a process. If we get a no vote on Thursday, that will trigger a major, unprecedented programme of devolution with additional powers for the Scottish Parliament. We are a family. The United Kingdom is not one nation. We are 4 nations in a single country. That can be difficult, but it's wonderful. Scotland, England, Wales, Northern Ireland, different nations with individual identities, competing with each other, even at times enraging each other, but while still being so much stronger together. Please don't think, I'm frustrated with politics right now, so I'll walk out the door. Please don't think, I'm frustrated with politics right now, so I'll walk out the door and never come back. If you don't like me, I won't be here forever. If you don't like this government, it won't last forever. But if you leave the United Kingdom, that will be forever. Don't lose faith in what this country is and what we can be. Don't forget what a great United Kingdom you are a part of. Don't turn your backs on what is the best family in the nations in the world and the best hope for your family in this world. So please, from all of us, vote to stick together, vote to stay, vote to save our United Kingdom. Thank you.
So, as I say, it's a thorny issue, right? But everything that he just said, everything that David Cameron just said about Scottish independence, or basically Scotland leaving the UK, kind of applies to the UK leaving the European Union. Because they're cutting themselves off from a lot of similar things that he's talking about that Scotland would have been doing in that little speech. So, this is why I'm saying that both situations are, well, let's just say they're conflicted. And as I say, there's a lot of question marks for both. And so I think the way currently things have been going along have not been helpful. But I would say that a fair amount of Scots are not, they're not very unreasonable. And they do seem to have no issue with, obviously, people in England and that sort of stuff. In fact, they, obviously have lots of relatives and stuff like that. But when it comes to their representation in the government there, they find that they are left wanting an awful lot. And that has been getting compounded by the trying to push the Brexit thing through rapidly without really giving proper representation to all the people involved in it, and what that decision means for everybody it affects. It's been trying to get fast tracked and kind of is pushing aside the concerns of some of the people it would affect. And this is why the conversation about Scottish independence is reemerging, in my opinion. And it's all to do with just intolerance, and it's happening in a lot of places, honestly, in with our politicians and in our congresses, parliaments, however you want to refer to it. But in our houses of democracy, there's no longer like any reason. Sometimes reason goes right out the window. And the democratic process needs to be respected again and put before people's egos, because I think a lot of what we're seeing in our politics right now possibly is just egos. But people need to put that aside and figure out what's right for the people right now, because as far as I see, there's a lot of question marks on both sides of this, and rushing to either one, I believe, is the incorrect route. And that's just my opinion. But anyways, having said that, I think the Scots are good-willed, and to show that, I will show you what some YouTubers have had to say on the subject.
why it's
Shite being Scottish!
Now don't get me wrong, I love this country. I wouldn't trade being Scottish for anything. But at the same time, there's a few things that kinda piss me off about it. So I've narrowed you down to a list of 5. Feel free to add your own things down in the comment section.
The second someone mentioned you are all alone, I could feel
The old enemy from across the border. Now when I say England, I don't mean English people. It's more the collective idea of England as a country. It's like your mum and dad went away on holiday and England's the big brother that's been left in charge, just running amok and making up rules as they go along. Meanwhile we're sitting here taking notes waiting for our ma to get back so we can start to pretend cry and grass them in. England have treated us like crash test dummies for years, using us to test out all their harebrained schemes. Like that bawhead Jamie Oliver, the English salad shagger that can't just fuck up his own country. No, he's got to come up here and ruin Iron Brew and 2-for-1 pizza deals. Get back in your box, mate. I can't wait for his new healthy cookbook. Ingredients list that includes rice, the human remains of the working class Scottish people, and all that remains of Iron Brew after he's finished it, which will probably just be water and orange food colouring. The thing is, it's not just the chefs, it's the English pundits and commentators on the Scottish television constantly banging on about 1966. Let's face it lads, it's been 52 years since she's won the World Cup and you haven't won anything since. Stop going on about it. There's also the papers and the news suddenly claiming Andy Murray to be British the second he wins anything, but when he loses he's all of a sudden branded as Scottish.
Where the animosity for me comes from is definitely from the politics. It's definitely Westminster. Now I know that politics across the world is in a shit place right now, and it's something that I say I will not discuss on my channel. But everybody out there that's watching this video, you guys must know we've just arrived at the end of season 2 of Brexit. Theresa May has resigned and has left us on a cliffhanger. Season 3 is due to begin very shortly. We're all eagerly anticipating season 3 to see what's going to happen to our favourite characters. One of my favourite characters is the Speaker. Order!
order!
Definitely one of my favourite characters. He's kind of like my version of Tyrion from Game of Thrones. Like, he's got that kind of feel to the way that his character development has been building. So I'm really excited to see what's going to happen with all these characters going into season 3.
Okay, so that was Batchy and Wee Scottish Lass. Batchy, I apologize for those of you who weren't able to understand Batchy or had difficulty understanding Batchy. He has that real deep Scottish, accent and everything. I'm able to understand him, and when you learn to understand Batchy, he's really funny. He really, in my opinion, is. But what he was talking about was, the fact that England's like a big brother they didn't ask for. It's just the Scots take it in stride, and you get that from Wee Scottish Lass too. But then also Batchy brings up the fact that because Westminster decided to remove sugar from drinks in the UK, it totally changed the Scottish drink, Iron Brew. Iron Brew is huge in Scotland. Huge in Scotland. And so they didn't like the fact that a chef down in the in London or whatever, and in Westminster, that they were forcing these changes on them. They loved their Iron Brew the way it was. So there's things like this that they have cause to just be like, it's frustrating for them that they get subject to these certain things, being in the UK. So it's things like this that have, spurred the conversation about Scottish independence and has caused it to rise up again. And that's what I'm talking about. And so Wee Scottish Lass, when you're listening to her, she's like, she's saying mainly when it comes down to it, it's Westminster that really, the things going on in Westminster. And that's what I'm going to show you today is kind of some of what that is. And why, for me, I'm a person, this is not political for me. I'm not siding with the Liberals or the Conservatives on any of these issues right now. All I'm saying is that what I'm about to show you going on in Westminster, it only gives cause and only gives more fuel to the conversation about Scottish independence because of the type of treatment in Westminster. But also you're going to see here what Wee Scottish Lass was talking about in her favorite character and how he's been developing, which is the Speaker. I also like the Speaker a lot. You're going to see in this clip that the Speaker, despite his politics, and this is why I like him so much, despite his politics, he respects the democratic process and he believes in all of the representatives' rights to speak on the floor there in the House of Commons. and I just think he's very impressive. I find him to be a ethical person, and and I understand why we Scottish Lass likes him, because I do too. I feel like well, you'll see in this clip, he's very classy, and he does something very nice, because, well, you're going to see what's happening here. Basically, a Scottish MP gets up to speak, actually not just an MP, but a QC, Queen's Counsel, her name's Joanna Cherry, gets up to speak, and about half the room stands up and starts making a ruckus as they're leaving the room. So you'll see here in the clip, and then we'll come on back.
Mr. Speaker,
if members who are leaving the chamber, I understand the disappointment of the honourable and learned lady, but I cannot compel members to remain. I cannot, to coin a phrase, take anybody hostage. I do not have the power to incarcerate. So now I'm trying to be helpful to the honourable and learned lady. I'm playing for time. If members who, quite unaccountably, do not wish to listen to the honourable and learned lady would leave the chamber quickly and quietly, the rest of us, including assuredly the chair, wishing to hear the honourable lady, can do so. I think people are gradually beetling out of the chamber. If the chair of the Education Select Committee feels that he can beetle out and conduct his conversation outside, that will be very greatly appreciated by the chair. Thank you. Point of order, Joanna Cherry.
Mr. Speaker, thank you for your indulgence. Viewers in Scotland are accustomed to the sight of the Tory benches emptying when speakers, members of Parliament representing Scottish seats get up, and I'm very much looking forward to seeing that in the SNP's party political broadcasts in the soon-to-come general election. But, Mr. Speaker, the point I want to make is an important one. The Prime Minister has failed to secure an approval of the withdrawal agreement today in terms of the Benn Act, and that means that under the law of this land he should be retreating to number 10 to pen a letter to the European Union in terms of the Act and in terms of the undertakings, as so described by the Secretary of State for exiting the European Union, the undertakings that he gave to the Scottish Court. Fortunately, Mr. Speaker, we're back in court on Monday morning, and it will be possible then to secure the court's assistance if the Prime Minister has flouted the law and the promises he gave to the court. But, Mr. Speaker, can I ask this? Should Scotland's Supreme Court mandate you to sign the letter required by the Act on behalf of this Parliament, will you do so? Thank you.
I'm grateful to the honourable and learned lady. I have no expectation of being so asked, and moreover I have no aspirations to the exalted status that would have been attained by a person so requested or indeed directed by the court. But the short answer to the honourable and learned lady is that if I were instructed by this House, I would do as instructed, and if I were directed or instructed by a court, I would do as directed. That is my instinctive reaction. I would, of course, seek further and better particulars. I would take advice. But I repeat, I haven't been asked. I'm not expecting to be asked. I'm not looking to be asked. But I would do as I was required to do, and I would have no hesitation in so doing. Yes, indeed. Point of order.
So there you see members of the Scottish National Party, the SNP there, where when Joanna Cherry gets up to speak, who I said is Queen's Counsel, and you see that all of those MPs that get up and leave the room noisily, the speaker actually has to single one of them out and ask him to take his conversation outside because he's like deliberately staying there and making noise and just being disruptive. And you can see the speaker had a distaste for it. He didn't like it. You know, you could see he was saying he didn't have the power to incarcerate any of them, but I kind of got the feeling in him saying that maybe he wished he did have a power to somehow detain them in some way. Maybe not as, you know, as far as incarceration, but maybe some power he might have to detain them in the building until, you know, some point, you know, or something. But as it was, he didn't have it, but, you know, so he just went ahead and, you know, explained to all them, get out as quickly as possible, you know, don't linger, and, you know, you're being disruptive. And then he allowed Miss Cherry the chance to speak. So regardless of his politics, he respects the democratic process, and I dig that. I like that about him. So I like the speaker. All right, so now we're going to move into why is it, what is it that the Scottish Nationalist Party is so worked up about, right? And so, okay, here I'm going to show you a clip of the First Minister, Nicola Sturgeon, talking about generally what it is about the Brexit process that is upsetting to, you know, the Scots, or, you know, the Scottish MPs, the SNP, those folks who find what we just saw there in the House of Commons distasteful, right? All right, so here we go.
With just 35 days to go until Brexit, isn't it time? Isn't it time that councils in Scotland were just given the money they need instead of being made to jump through bureaucratic hoops?
First Minister.
No wonder Jackson Carlos staring at his phone right now. We shouldn't be having to spend a single penny on Brexit preparations. Because, let me remind the member, Scotland did not vote for Brexit. The member talks about £98.7 million of consequentials that we've received. So far, we've committed £92 million of that. But the cost of Brexit will far exceed any consequentials that we have received, or no doubt will be likely to receive from the UK government. For example, we are having to cover up to £17 million for Police Scotland this year as an unavoidable cost of no-deal Brexit. So it is shameful that a Conservative member of this Parliament gets up here and asks about the money that we're spending to prepare for the impact of a policy that his party is imposing on this country against our will. Shame on you.
All right, so that was a clip from Scottish Parliament. That was the First Minister in Scotland, Nicola Sturgeon, and she was basically answering that, you know, Scottish Parliament member who was wondering when there would be funds being released for the planned Brexit or whatever, and she basically tells him exactly what she thinks. So, yeah, interesting, but that's the way the Scots feel about this. Number one, they didn't vote for it, and number two, they've been left out of the negotiations of how this exit's going to look, or what it's going to be, how it's going to work, and so they feel like they've been barred from that. And so a question like that for Scotland's responsibility in it, you know, it was laughable in a way. So that's why you saw that kind of response. But like I said, whichever side of it you're on, I'm not so sure independence is the answer. So, but all I know is that the conversation is only going to continue to, you know, rise up and continue to get stronger as long as we're seeing this type of stuff in Parliament, where we see MPs basically pissing on the democratic process, you know, and being generally disrespectful to fellow MPs, or if we were here in the U.S., we would say senators. There needs to be a lot more tolerance and understanding right now, because there's it does seem to be missing in the world at the moment. That's for sure. So we need to be able to find the middle ground and find what is best for most people. What does the most to help the most people, and that should be what we're thinking, not about personal agendas, which seems to be kind of what gets considered about, you know, in here. So that's about it for this one today, folks. I know Sharon and I will be coming back and talking about some more stuff here, but this is basically the part one, the introduction, the why I see, basically the reason why I see the conversation for Scottish independence continuing to rise and continuing to gain strength is, I think, in a lot of reason because of what we're seeing in Parliament, like I showed you here today. So, all right, that's it for this one. If you haven't already, please hit subscribe, and we'll see you.